right, there we go. We are finally here. Sorry for the little technical difficulties there, but we are here with Traci Phillips, and we are so excited. She has agreed to do our interview on Amazon Live. So, Amazon, give Traci a great welcome. We are going to be talking about her book that she wrote, and it's on Amazon. It's in our cart down there at the bottom. Make sure that you are looking at the book. The book is called Looking In. And I tell you, I just love the title because we need to look in. So, Traci, welcome to Amazon Live.
Thank you, Antoine. It's good to be here.
All right. So, have you ever been on Amazon Live before?
I have not. This is my first time.
All right. Yeah. So, we are actually on Amazon Live. For those of you on Amazon, make sure that you click on the follow button to follow us on Amazon. That helps us out. But what we'd like to do here, just go to introduce yourself, Traci, and tell us, a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So I am Traci Phillips. I am a leadership and performance coach to visionary leaders. So I work with both corporate leaders and entrepreneurial leaders. And I'm really focused on helping them with their own personal performance so that they can then be better leaders for their teams and their organizations. And so I really focus pretty much on two main things. That's the decision making and the communication, because typically visionaries have a little bit of a challenge there because they're so kind of focused on the vision and the mission and the purpose that kind of drives them, that a lot of times they forget about the kind of the smaller details and the things that go more into the execution of what drives the business. So that's really kind of where I help bridge that gap.
All right. Wow. Yeah, I've been watching your post on LinkedIn, guys. I'm going to put her information on the screen. If you need to make sure you follow her on LinkedIn and all of her other social media, because you are going to get some great information. So now, as you're talking about looking within, and I was looking at your book, now is an interesting time, because I love it what you said on the back of your book, where now we're in a time where you have to really rethink how things are done. We've been taught one way, but unfortunately now, or maybe not unfortunately, now you have to adjust. So how would you speak to that?
Yeah, so when I wrote the book in 2020. So it came out in 2021. And I'm a visionary myself. And so what I tend to, each visionary focuses on different things. And I tend to look at the patterns of what's to come. And, of course, what's to come most focused right now for me in leadership. What is to come in leadership? What do we need to kind of prepare ourselves for, position ourselves for in leadership specifically? But I kind of do it generally as that first look. And so what I was seeing was this need that, we had gotten to a certain pinnacle point in history where we had been so kind of conditioned to this idea of reliancy and looking out for leadership, looking at what do I do? Who am I? How do I position myself? What is my value? Right. And not getting it from our own internal guidance, but literally feeling like we can't know those things unless somebody outside or something outside of us tells us. Mm-hmm. And that it had led us down some pretty dangerous roads. And I certainly started to really see it in all areas, but in leadership, it was coming out even before we went through the COVID quarantine period. But what was really interesting is, as I was writing Looking In, so I was looking in at my own inner guidance to help me write the book. This is exactly what was going on.
Right.
We were quarantined into our homes. Right. We weren't allowed to kind of have all those external diversions or distractions that would kind of have us living that life of looking out. And a lot of people started to do just that. They started to look in.
That's right.
They started to ask the question, once we kind of got over that hump of, oh my gosh, this is so weird and so different from my normal every day today. People started to find, well, I kind of like living it, and working out of my home. I like not having a commute.
Yeah.
I like being able to pick and choose what I can do, because I can only do so much since it's all virtual. I don't want to be virtual 24/7. I don't want to be on Zoom calls, all day long. I need a break. And so people started to actually figure out their own biorhythms, their own, what works for them, what was meaningful and important and purposeful for them.
Right.
And then when we started to come out and we saw some of these trends of people not wanting to go back to work. They wanted more hybrid opportunities. Right. So which leads us to where we are now. And so we've already collectively, and because this was going on worldwide,
Hmm.
not just here in the United States,
Right.
we have this collective of humanity kind of having this collective experience.
That's right.
And so there's more of that conversation out there, especially in social media, and people sharing, these ideas on, well, how could we do this better? And now I'm seeing being forced to go back into the workforce is toxic. I'm actually
Yes.
finding that there are things within the workforce that were toxic, and I didn't even know until I stepped away.
Yeah, that's right.
So, this idea first of looking in as a concept of you're only going to find your true answers to not only who you are, the value of that, but what you're here to make of that value. In other words, how are you here to serve, by getting those internally. But because we're, like I said, so conditioned to look outside, we don't really know how to access that.
Yes.
Right. And so the book is kind of a three-pronged intentional focus. It has three prongs in its intentional focus. The first one is to kind of just bring up this consideration. Hey, guess what?
Right.
This is what's going on. Maybe we want to look in. The second one is that how do we do that, right? And I developed a very simple process that I've led clients through for quite some time now, in order to actually define what those things are for us. What is our what's our value, both intrinsic, in other words, innate, and acquired, right? The skills and different capacities we've learned from being in the outside world and what we've learned in school and through credentialing. So that's our what. And then our how. How do we want to deliver that value into the world?
Right.
What feels best for me? Does it feel best doing it in a hybrid way? Does it feel best when I can be at home and school my kids and have a job? Maybe I don't want to work full time. Maybe now I realize I want part time. I want more balance in my work and personal life. What does that look like for me? How do I, if I feel this is my value, how do I want to deliver that? And then where has to do with not just the environments, what places help me to be most valuable.
Yes.
But also where am I going to be most valued, but also experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Where is about where do I want to go and experience things. So it's really helping people to kind of sit and think, because nobody's ever asked us these. Well, not nobody. I'm sure there's maybe some people out there in the world where they have asked these questions, or they have had people ask these questions of them. But as a worldwide society, traditionally, these are not the types of things that we're being asked, and therefore asking of ourselves. And then the third part of the book is really designed to kind of give stories and different ways of giving perspective, to some similar, or not similar is not the right word, some things that we're very aware of. Like one of them is imposter syndrome, a different way of looking at it. Another one is kind of where we've come as far as, here in the United States, a coddled society. We've gotten so accustomed to being protected and looking to those systems and people outside of us to make sure we stay safe and secure, that we don't know how to create that within ourselves.
That's right.
Right. So, to kind of give a spin on some of these traditional ways of thinking and traditional perspectives, on some buzzwords, was the kind of the third part that was developed in the book. So yeah, that's kind of, it was an interesting time frame, because of course you never know, how things are going to come out. But by the time it did hit the market, there were a lot of people saying, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly what I needed to read at the exact time that I needed to read it."
Yeah, I think the book came, like you say, at a great time, because it allowed, it really forced all of us to look in, because I work for the corporate world. Amazon is not my real job. But we had issues about people returning to work, and people like, hey, wow, I'm being more productive at home, and now I have a nice balanced life. And the corporate world was really adjusting. I know I'm not going to mention any companies, but where they were forcing employees to come back, employee was actually leaving because they were forced to go back. I think people have looked in and they don't like what they see.
Yeah, both from the point of view of alignment with the choices they've made, but also
Yeah.
themselves. Like I don't like who I am when I'm working all the time and never get to see my kids because I
Yes.
have a 2-hour commute and everything is about work, work, work. I
Exactly.
don't like, that's not how I want to live my life. So there's that two-pronged thing is that as we look in, then we can reflect instead of outward in, it's
Hmm.
inward out. Right now
Right.
that we are looking in, we can say, does this out here
Right.
align with what I'm trying to develop in here or what I'm becoming? I'm coming online to realize I want,
That's right.
from within.
That's right.
And that's what we're dealing with right now. Coupled with,
Exactly.
we also, when we look in history, everything that we experience
Hmm.
is a culmination of the mindset and choices we've made from the
That's right.
past, right? So
Hmm.
where you are right here, where I am right here, this right in this moment, we are, and the experience that we are having is a culmination of everything that we've thought, said, done, positioned ourselves in the past.
That's right.
So when we look at things like generation shifts,
Hmm.
and we see these kids now who some generations are like, oh my gosh, they don't know how to self-direct,
That's
they're
it.
lazy, they're entitled, all these things. We have to say, well, if that's our perspective, how did we help create it?
That's right.
Because these kids didn't just emerge, from nowhere. I mean, it's
Exactly.
always a culmination, and so we have this both responsibility and accountability to
That's
that.
right.
And at the same time, I look at we're always exactly where we're meant to be for the lessons
Hmm.
we're meant to learn.
That's
And
it.
so what is it these kids, I was like, kids, what is this generation is teaching us
Hmm.
that's going to position us for the future?
That's right.
That's the other thing. People keep wanting to pull them into the past. Be more like our generations. Why can't you be more like us? Because that's what we know. That's what
That's
we were raised
right.
with. That's how we were raised to be.
Hmm.
And especially around responsibility. But what if we were to say they're canaries in a coal mine, telling us that there's something to come that we need to prepare us. If we don't like how they're being, they're kind of here to generate some wow, if you don't start to change the tides,
Hmm.
then what's coming in the future. But
Right.
I also think that they are here to hearken in and to reckon, to help us get prepared for what's in the future. Because
That's
I
right.
was at recent a recent presentation about generations and the
Hmm.
gaps and the causes that some of the issues that it's causing in the workforce.
Hmm.
And some of the people who were sharing, one of them was a Gen Zer, right? So it's not the youngest generation. We already have Generation Alpha, but they're not in the workforce yet. So the
Right.
Gen Zs are the youngest generation in the workforce. And
Hmm.
she was sharing, she says, we're collaborative. We don't want to be seen individually. We want to be seen collectively.
Mm.
So if you want to give me kudos, even don't make me the employee in the month and celebrate me in front of the group. That makes me feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Celebrate the whole team,
Hmm.
right, for getting us here. And that's a very different spin on value.
It is.
If you look at the older generations, I'm a Gen X, and we're the latchkey kids generation. So we were the ones that learned how to figure it all out and do everything ourselves. We
Right.
let
Exactly.
ourselves in the house, did
Right.
our homework, made our dinner, took care of our siblings.
Right.
So we're the problem solvers, and we are the ones raising or raised the Gen Zers. And so it's
Hmm.
like we took care of them so well because that's what we're good at, that they didn't have to take care of themselves, right? They
Right.
didn't have to learn these things. And so part of it is as Xers in the
That's good.
workforce, it's to recognize we need
Mhm.
to help, mentor them into the spaces that, we got to experience that they, because we're, so quickly did for them, didn't get to learn, right? And as much as we might not want to parent, a lot of people say, a lot of clients, I don't want to have to parent my employees. I don't really like to look at it as parenting. I like to look at it
Right.
as modeling, mentoring, and coaching. What it means is that we need to have organizations that are willing to, coach these generations up, because they're very dedicated when
Mhm.
they're in a collaborative environment, when
Mhm.
each member of the environment is there to try to bring value to
Right.
the experiences of all within that environment. They're very comfortable in diversity.
Yeah.
They're very quick to recognize when one member of the tribe is being left out.
Yeah.
Um, and so these are things we can learn from, that we weren't modeled in our generations, but then we can also help them with the things they haven't really learned to do, that we did in our generations. And so really not looking at it as you need to be more like me, or even we need to be more like you, is how can we come together and have better communication and dialogue about what we all need
Yeah.
at this time,
That's
right?
it.
Based on where we are.
Man, I mean, I was mentally taking a ton of notes there. You said a ton there, and that is so true. We're from that age of problem solving, and it seemed like we solved all the problems, and this next generation just don't know how to problem solve. I'll just be honest with you. But then one of the things that you brought out, and I'm seeing this in the corporate world, so this is where I see your service is very useful, is that it is changing to more collaborative. Before, everybody was siloed and things like that. Now businesses are saying, hey, let's get collaborative and everybody work together. Not let's single out, like you said, the employee of the month, but let's single out a team. And I'm seeing that in the corporate world. So how does your service come in? Let's say, for example, I have a corporation or a small business, and I wanted you to come, help my culture in my business. How would that look? How do they contact you, and what would you do?
Yeah, well, and one of the comments, and I was sitting at this last presentation I was just talking about with some boomers, some gentlemen who were from the boomer generation, and they leaned over and they're like, how in the world are we gonna, I mean, what are these Gen Zs gonna be like as leaders?
Right.
And I looked at them and I said, well, leadership is changing too. We're not going to have the one leader at the top. We're going to have collaborative leaders, right? We're going to have multiple people at the top making decisions. So it's not, oh gosh, how we need to worry about how they're going to get themselves into the typical kind of leadership we've experienced and expected. But the leadership in general is going to shift and change to make room for the needs that we have. So to answer your question, because I'm focused on the leadership of usually the CEO and also their leadership team, right? So the C-suite team, I really help, them to, in many cases, it's having conversations just like this. Because they're like, I need my people to do X, Y, and Z, and it's just educating them on how things have changed and the opportunity as opposed to the liability. Because a lot of times they look through the lens of liability. If they can't suck it up, they'll just have to leave, or we're going to have to, get rid of them, or, I'm like, well, they'll probably leave before you actually fire them. But it's instead of just siloing or taking our balls and going home, it really is more of an attitude of, okay, this is a challenge. How do we seek to resolve it in a way that's not so control oriented? We want to have parameters. We want to have boundaries. We want to have rules of the road. But those come best through values, and not through dictatorial kind of, this is how it's going to be, and buck up and shape up or get out. So a lot of it is educating those leaders, because most of them fall into those top generations, Xers, boomers, and traditionalists. So they don't know anything other than the top-down leadership. I'm the boss. I make the rules. You listen and follow. That's what they know.
That's it.
Right. So a lot of it's coming in and educating, and then giving them, because it's all new, right? It's giving them some, considerations for approach and ways to come up with a solution, to work with all that they have going on, because, not everybody's organization is comprised the same. So it really is more, I mean, I always tell people I'm a custom fit. I come in and create custom designed programs. It's not, oh, I do this same thing with every.
Oh, that's good.
Right. Because not everybody needs the same thing, or not everybody's the same leader. So
exactly.
Right. So but communication and decision making are key. And I actually have a program, the whole brained leadership approach, that I bring into my coaching with leaders. And that is learning how to tap into your head, again, with head, heart, and gut brains. Right. So neuroscience has shown us we don't just have a brain in our head. We actually have one in our heart and one in our gut. And as in individual intelligences, how often are we leading with maybe one, the other, what we really should be leading with all? And that's the concept. And so if we're just in our heads, we're probably not connecting best with our people. Right. Because that's not where we connect. We connect in the heart. Right. Right. And that's why you see so much dialogue about emotional intelligence and empathy and all of that in leadership right now, because it's really conversations about the heart brain and how the heart brain can begin to give us those insights maybe we have not been listening to or not been making decisions based off of prior to this time,
Right.
right?
I
And it's
see.
not just about listening just to the heart either, because people, some of my clients, the first thing they say is, but following my heart, won't that get me in trouble? Because we've also been taught that, right?
Yeah.
But you're not supposed to necessarily, as a leader in an organization where there's multiple things you need to take into consideration,
Right.
you don't just lead with your heart. But if you
No.
leave your heart out of the equation when making decisions, you're probably not going to make the best decisions.
That's right.
Right?
That's
So you need
right.
your head, your heart, but then the other thing is you need your gut.
Yes.
And that's the third one that most visionary leaders lead with.
Right.
So most visionaries, the reason why their people may have a hard time following them, like Elon Musk is a great example in the news right now,
Okay.
is that people are like, what is the method to his madness?
Right.
Like not nobody, but very few people understand what he's doing because he's not communicating what he's doing. He's just coming in and doing it. And it is so different than what we think good leadership should be right now.
That's right.
That it's throwing people off. And so that lack of communication, it's not that he's doing things wrong. There is a method to his madness, because I guarantee any visionary, there's method to their madness. But the important thing is to be able to communicate that.
That's right.
Right? And
you gotta be able to communicate
to those that matter most.
That's
it's not
right.
his job to communicate to the entire world if that's not, what he needs to do. But he does need to communicate it to the key people.
That's right.
We're going to support with the execution of that vision.
There you go. There
right?
you go.
And so that's the piece that I see a lot missing in visionary leaders, and why some people have a hard time putting visionary and leader in the same sentence together.
Yeah.
Because they don't, oftentimes the gap there is in recognizing that they're not communicating, because many times they're like, but they should just know. Like, well, they don't see what you see.
That's right.
They're not, they can't just reach into your head and pull out that information. It is up to you to communicate it in a way that they understand. That's the other piece. So
right.
So
well, I think
coming in and doing that work.
Yeah, I think also in your book, you kind of was talking about everyone themselves being a leader. And then being a leader, like you said, doesn't mean you have to be over anyone, but you're leading yourself and connecting together and working together. Because I think everybody, like you said it well, we've been taught, to climb the corporate ladder, step over people. But we're finding out that we need to take people with us.
I love that. That is so well put. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And many people don't know how to do that because, like you said, we've been practicing the stepping over for so long. Like, well, how do I bring people with me effectively? Exactly. Because there, a lot of my clients even say, but it slows me down. Like, yes. And you made the decision to make this a business.
That's right.
This idea, it's like the soul and the body. They need one another.
That's right.
The soul doesn't have a human experience without the body, and the body doesn't, have a human experience without the soul, right? So it's this idea of, you need this is your vehicle, and the vehicle needs you, needs your vision, right? So how are we going to work together so that both can not only be successful, but also be in an environment that is augmenting their value. Right. So everybody I see as a value puzzle piece in the world equation. That's right. So you have value, I have value. The question is, where's our value fit best? Just like puzzle pieces in a puzzle, not that puzzle piece doesn't fit everywhere. It fits one particular place perfectly.
Right.
And it's up to us to find where our placement is.
Right.
Somebody else is not going to come along and say, oh, this is your placement. Right. And that's where that self-leadership piece comes from, is this idea of, being self-led is about figuring out, who are you? What do you have to offer? How do you want to offer that, and where helps you better maneuver and navigate that, that journey to find your best placement.
Yeah, and on top of that, now let's say once we look in and we don't like what we see, do you help us get to where we need to be? Because like you say, and here's a question I really want to ask you: is everyone a leader? I mean, or is just some people can't lead, or there's special people built to be leaders? I would love to get your take on that.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, again, it depends on what definition you're operating with. when it comes to leader. I mean, there's got a zillion different definitions of what
Right.
that means. But if we take it from my perspective, the more global perspective, and why I mentioned it in the book, we all have the potential to be self-led. I mean, we are all self-led. We're all leading ourselves, whether we're doing it consciously or unconsciously.
Right.
But when it comes to conscious self-leadership, that's all we can focus on. We can't change others. We can only change ourselves.
Right.
We can't control others. We can only control ourselves.
Right.
And so it's that idea of, how do I operate myself, right? How am I going to control myself to be
Gotcha.
that person I want to be? But if we
Gotcha.
don't know what that person I want to be is,
Mm-hmm.
what am I controlling myself to?
Right.
And so, to your point of, when we look in and we don't like what we see, I mean, we've also been taught we've been, kind of conditioned to judge.
Mm-hmm.
So self-judgment can be kind of one of the first things I see in some people, if they don't, right? So everybody's throwing around the word narcissist these days, and really what that is it's the opposite, where they don't like what they see, and so they project it out. But either way, it's not taking control over what they see. So whether you judge in or you judge out, it's not addressing the actual thing that's causing you to judge.
Right.
And come in and working through that. So yes, I do help my clients in that space. And I also, I have to say that I have vetted a very particular team of people. I don't work alone.
Okay.
So I stay in my lane, what I'm best at. And so it depends really on what clients' needs are. So for example, if I go into an entrepreneurial space, I'm working with a client, there's all sorts of other things I might see. And I, through time, introduce that client to various other experts who can help them, who are also dedicated to working with visionaries, to help them in their space. So HR needs, operational needs, sometimes even when we get into that looking in stuff, and it's real clinical needs, it's therapists, it's, people dealing with all sorts of things that start to come up. I don't try to deal with what's outside of my lane.
Okay.
And so it's really important to back to that collective value, to recognize that when we come in to work with people, at least this is my perspective as a fractional, right? As someone who comes in from the outside of a corporation or the outside of a business to help support the business. My job is to ensure that I stay in my zone of brilliance, as I write in the book, which is my lane of expertise.
Right.
And then, but yet also at the same time, have solutions, meaning sometimes people, that can help with the other things that are not in my lane. So, so that's what I spend most of my time doing. I'm kind of a bit of a fractional CXO in a way, because I match make. A lot of people, even it has nothing to do with the work I'm doing per se, but it's what I see a client needs. Or if they have somebody, oftentimes I'm a confidant to clients, they'll come to me and say, I'm going to tell you this, or I'd like you to sit down with this person and come back and let me know what you see. Do you think they're the right person for this? See, and because I have that ability to kind of read people and listen to language and all of that, we kind of figure out, because that person doesn't know and they don't know. So we're like, all right, we need to come up with a solution. And maybe it's pulling in somebody who also focuses on that particular thing. So whether it's assessments, there's all sorts of tools we can use to figure out if the right person's in the right seat, or even in the right organization. Sometimes culture fit is just not a fit.
Yes, that's the truth.
Right?
So. That is the truth right there. Man, I tell you, this is some good stuff here. So what I wanted to do, normally when I do these author interviews, and I need your help here, is we used to, give a book away every time we do an Amazon Live, but Amazon has kind of really been shying away on that. So what we like to do, because they don't want us to collect any information. So if I run a contest and I pay for the book, how would you like to? How can we run that? Let's figure this out together live. Because I want to give a book away today, and that's what I did with my last interview. I'll tell you what we did. I had the people contact the author, and the author picked the winner, and I just cashed out the fee to the author.
So that nobody's personal information is getting collected.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah. So would that work?
That works for me. Absolutely.
Okay, so how would they contact you? Is it on your website, or did you want your email address? How did you want to do that?
Well, it's in my LinkedIn, but if you're not on LinkedIn, I don't want to just send people to LinkedIn because they may not be on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So I'll just give my email address.
Okay. Let me
It's
see.
just
I get. Is it the one that I've used?
Traci at theinnatelcoach.com. Yes.
All right. Well, let me. I'll just put it in here right now. Okay. I didn't know if you wanted me to give that email address out. So, guys, I'm going to tell you how we're going to run this, and I'm going to get this for you here. I'm about to put it in this. I'm doing it live. So, man, we're changing this live. Once I get all these windows down here, let's see. We're gonna give you we want you guys to enter this contest. And when Traci tell me the winner, and she's gonna get this book out to you, and I'm gonna cover the cost of this book. So if you're in the chat, we only got a few people in Amazon. Type Traci in the chat. Now we got somebody called Traci in the chat. She says not, but type Traci in the chat. I just put her email on the screen, and it's going to be scrolling here at the bottom. So send the email and tell her you were watching her on Amazon Live. There's the email, Traci at the how do you say that? The
innate
innatecoach.com. All right. So if you're listening on Amazon, all right, there's Traci. Okay, Traci. She says she spells her name Tracey. Hello, Traci. Make sure you send an email. It's scrolling down at the bottom, and if she'll select the winner, I'll let her pick whoever she wants to. I don't know if she'll do the first, last, whatever she does, and we'll fund that book for her. Now, I actually, Traci, I'm going to show my jingle here from our company here. So we'll take a quick second. We're going to play this jingle, and we're going to come back. Here we go.
Simply the best, better than all the rest. Computer Pal.
Whoa, I feel honored here on Amazon. My friend Joe Tuck, my college roommate, is tuning in. All right, Joe, make sure you send an email. You may win the book. He's a great friend, I tell you. Yeah, they're tuning in. He's probably coming in from LinkedIn. I'm streaming this to LinkedIn as well. Well, Traci, man, I tell you, this is so exciting. I wish my company would bring you in. I'm going to probably recommend it. Because culture is really changing. And like you say, we are really rethinking the way that we work. And it is really working out well. I work for a big company, and I work from home, have the option to go in. But, then when I sit there and think, like you said earlier, the commute, and, we had a big meeting where you come in, and we were working with people remote anyway. So they want you to come into a cube and get on virtual. Like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. So, when it makes sense, I think it's good. But when it doesn't make sense, we need to adjust. And, not just like you said, go with the way it used to be. So you got to learn to adjust. And I think you mentioned that in your book too, about change. Change has to take place. Change is innate. It's going to happen. And adjusting with change is the key. And let me tell you, I'm learning about change, and you have to adjust. You either change or you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, we oftentimes joke about it with my clients. It's like, you can either go with the change or be dragged.
Exactly. And that is the truth.
Mm-hmm. And again, I always like to frame it as an opportunity, because it really always is.
Go.
I mean, whether something we're experiencing is really challenging or even painful, the opportunity to take that and look in again. I mean, I just had some challenging things happen with a group I'm working with last week. And, what I always do is kind of that internal assessment.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what can I learn from this? Because this is not happening for no reason.
That's right.
Everything, I always tell clients, let's put it all out on the table, head, heart, and gut information, because it's all relevant. We just need to figure out how and where.
That's right.
And prioritize this, right? And so, it's really about that opportunity to say, without that challenge, I may not have noticed that thing. I may not have understood that, and I wouldn't have had the opportunity to improve.
That's right.
To change, to, whatever that means. But when we can frame that mindset as one of opportunity, no matter what it is that's coming down the pike, I mean, and it can get it. I know with many, many people in the last 3+ years, there have been some real hefty challenges.
Yes.
And framing that, but I've also had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people who have come out of that.
That's right.
And said, it was hard and I wasn't necessarily looking at it as an opportunity then. But for self-preservation, I almost kind of had to.
Right.
Because I was either going to go down that rocky road of depression and staying in that hurt place.
That's right.
Or I was going to be able to come out and see a greater purpose in it on the other side. And so, there's always that benefit. When one thing goes away, it's replaced by something else. And I always like to remind people, it's really wonderful when we can be intentional about what it is we are bringing in to replace that thing that is going out, right? Because the laws of nature will be that if we don't intentionally replace it, something else will replace it for us.
That's it.
Right, and it may be worse than what went away.
Oh my goodness!
Right,
Boy,
so yeah, it's a very challenging time to be in, but it's also one of the greatest opportunities. We have more opportunities now than in any other time when there isn't as much instability, because instability breeds opportunity.
That's true. And I love what you said, nature there. As you were explaining that, I was thinking about a caterpillar. That caterpillar goes through that cocoon stage, but man, he comes out beautiful as a butterfly. But it takes a transformation for that to happen. And remember, the caterpillar was crawling around. The butterfly is flying. Man, I'm telling you, you can feel free to use that.
It's a perfect analogy, because if you also think about it, if we know from it biologically speaking, when the caterpillar goes into the chrysalis stage, it literally is eating itself up to reform into a butterfly. So when it comes, I mean, that could be, I don't know about you, but that sounds like it'd be pretty like painful.
Yeah.
Right. And pretty challenging. Yeah. So really, if we think about that, no transformation happens without some pain and challenge.
Oh my goodness.
Birth is like that. That's another good analogy, Yeah. I mean, I know after giving birth, it's painful.
That's right.
There's no other way to put it. It's painful. But what comes out on the other side is the most beautiful thing. And we forget in an instant.
That's it.
We forget. I said to my husband, apparently, I don't remember saying this. He said that. He's like, like few seconds after my daughter was born, I'm like, well, that wasn't that bad. He's like, oh my gosh, that's not what it looked like for mine.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. Yeah, you're right. That is a great analogy there. But man, so did you learn anything about yourself when you wrote this book? What did you learn about yourself?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I mean, I learned a lot of things, but I think one of the biggest things that I learned is kind of to allow this process to be formed, not just by me. So I talk a lot about this center of control that we have, right? What is within our control in actuality and what is not, and what are we trying to control even more because it's not in our control. So it's like, it's this vicious cycle. Like there's no amount of control you can try to place on it to control it, because it's already under your control.
Oh my goodness.
Right. So just know that and pull your energy back in. But what I learned, I just told this story actually recently when I started writing. I thought I'd never written a book. I mean, I'm a writer. I write a lot, but I'd never actually authored a book. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do what I've heard a lot of other people do. I'm going to get up in the morning. I'm going to write in the morning. I'm going to write a certain number of hours. And then I think that lasted a week. And it just wasn't the way I was meant to do it. And so I kind of sat with it and I said, I'm an intuitive person. Like I'm gut predominant for sure. I think first through my senses. And so my sense was saying, just figure it out as you go. So, I kind of was writing a little bit. So I just started, because I write first by hand when it comes to basic ideas. And then I go to the computer to kind of form it. But I was just jotting things down, and I realized I started to think about when I write my blog posts, and it's always from an inspiration, either from a conversation, or I'll be in the shower and I'm like, I have an idea, or I'm reading an article and I'm like, ooh, I pull out a part of it and I have an idea. So it's always inspired. So I thought, okay, I'm going to write from a place of inspiration. I'm going to just let it come to me.
Right.
And so that's how I did the first, couple, bits of it. And then I started pulling in actually some old blog posts. So some of the stuff
Okay.
that's in the book, I had already written like
There
years
you
before,
go.
because it started to make sense in that space. And I'm like, all right, I'm
Right.
gonna pull that in. And so it's really weaving a web or making a patchwork quilt. It was like, oh, this piece goes here. And I really am more of a puzzle maker, in the sense, or a puzzle put together,
Right.
where I'm looking for the pieces and I'm putting them together. And if I need to write something because there's a missing piece, I'll write it. But that's kind of how it was formed. And, it was really co-creating with God. It was, you send the inspiration, I'll be open to it. I'll create some physical form to it in words, and we'll do this together. And I think that's why it had the timing that
Right.
it did, is because, when we're led by a larger, force than our own,
Right.
it always usually lands exactly where it needs to land at the exact time it needs to
Absolutely.
land.
That's right.
And so I learned to be humble. I learned to be
Okay.
patient. I learned that wisdom comes not just from what's in my head, right? That I have all these other ways of navigating the information that I seek.
Right.
And it's actually, it's something that I teach clients, but I honed it even more
Right.
in writing this book. Like, I learned how to do it for myself even better,
That's right.
so that I can teach clients to do it even better. So
There you
yeah,
go.
those are the things I learned.
Yeah. So, that's why I love that question. And this is how I know you learned it, because you want to teach others. That's when you really learn it.
That's true.
And then,
That's
and
so
a
true.
good leader will teach others. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I mean, is that what you found to be true as well?
Yeah, and I realize you asked that question, is everybody a leader? And I think everybody is a leader, but not every leader is meant to be leading from the same space.
Right. Exactly. I understood
So
that.
some people, it's like, are they a leader for this organization with this culture, with these needs? And maybe not.
That's true.
Right. But we can't say they're not a leader just because they're not a leader for this space.
That's
Maybe they're a
true.
leader for another space. They're a
That's
leader
true.
at their home or at their church or
Right.
in their community in some way, and it doesn't always translate. Right.
Exactly.
People say, oh, this leader has all this experience here, but then they came here and they hit a wall. Like, they just weren't
Exactly.
effective. Well, yeah, because we're not all effective in the same spaces.
Man, I tell you, see, I learned something. You really helped me out. And I agree with you 100%. Everybody is a leader, but every leader has to be in that right place. That is so true. And I've seen that even with ministry. A great leader, was doing good at one place, going to another place, thought it could, and it wasn't the same. But, it's all about, timing and placement and everything. So I agree
It is.
100%. Now, once
I
again,
appreciate it.
yeah, exactly. One more thing, we got people in the comment. Guys, I'll tell you one more time to enter the contest. There's her email address, Traci at theinnatecoach.com. Send an email to her and tell her you were watching her on Amazon Live. That's all you got to say. She said this is her first Amazon Live. So just send her email, and the way it works, if she picks you to be the winner, she's going to send you that book, and then I'm going to pay her, and we're going to be done with it. So are we clear? So people was asking questions in the chat. I was just answering that for you. I'm going to guys, also make sure you hit that follow button on Amazon for us. That will do us a great deal. I'm going to let Traci, I'm going to give her center stage here. It has been a pleasure. I have learned a ton. I'll be replaying this on a couple of social media platforms. But as her information scrolls down, guys, please follow her. I'm telling you, follow her on LinkedIn. Her blog posts are amazing. Her writings are so amazing. You will learn a ton, and they're so inspirational, and they hit home. So, Traci, I'm going to put you center stage. Talk about whatever you want to talk about, your other activities, whatever the Lord lays on your heart. You have center stage. Here, we'll let you close this out.
Thank you, Antoine. Well, it has certainly been a pleasure to be with all of you today. And honestly, you said and we talk about everybody being a leader. And I always say the beautiful thing is it's all the potential within us, right? So we're all here to be potential leaders. it doesn't mean we're always ready. And so, being able to really work with people around us, I think being humble, and being vulnerable and being open to people, other people pouring into us as well, to be more capable of saying we need help when we need it or support when we need it, is such an important thing. And that's really probably one of the biggest platforms I'm on right now, is this concept of sharing with people it's okay. Like, we really are here to collaborate. We really did come here to work together. And I think a lot of us have learned to defend ourselves against that. Like, somehow we're not self-made if we need help from other people, or somehow we're not as good as we should be if we need help from other people, or whatever stories we're making up in our heads. But in actuality, that truncates our ability to be as valuable as we came to be the leaders, to potentiate into those, that potential that is within us. Right. Because there's parts of us that we cannot access unless we access it through others. One of the things as a coach is I say that I have a 500,000 view of your life from the top down. We are not made to see everything in our lives. We do have to rely on others to see things that we can't see, that are literal blind spots in our lives.
That's right.
So, whether it's a coach, whether it's a friend, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a pastor, a priest, somebody, whether it's just, sometimes it can be a complete stranger. I have been given and graced with some of the greatest leadership advice from complete strangers in my life. So, I would just say that as you look in, there are going to be things that confuse you. There are going to be things that just seem strange, because what it is it's rattling the cages of your conditioned values.
That's it.
As you start to recognize who you truly are, it's going to go against a lot of the way you've learned to be. Trust me. And that can create a lot of cognitive dissonance.
That's it.
That can make it really hard to understand, like, well, which one is right? Which way is the true way? And you can seek that. That's a great question to ask others. One of the things I always have clients when we're doing the what, how, where exercise is what if things that people have said to you about you that have surprised you? Right? What are value words that you're like, really? What? I'm that? Or you see me as that, or you see that as a good thing? Because sometimes there's things about ourselves we don't like that other people are saying are a great point about us.
That's right.
And so some of those ways of just asking for that feedback and being ready to receive it, because it doesn't always come in ways that are comfortable.
That's right.
Sometimes feedback is really hard to hear,
That's it.
but it will help you find what you're seeking if you allow it. Right.
Right.
So, that's kind of my give, and share with everybody. Obviously I have programs, I have things like that. If people are interested, they can reach out. A great way to really get to know me well is my website.
Okay.
I put everything on my website. So if you are, when people say I like to stalk people online to like learn about them, you want to stalk me online, go to my website. You don't have to go too far. It's all right there.
Right.
But yeah, reach out. I'm happy to, I do complimentary discoveries if you're really serious. If you are visionary too, if you're not, I don't only work with visionaries. Sorry, people.
Right.
But if you are a visionary and you really are looking for that support, I would love to talk to you. Or if you know of somebody, or if you're interested in the book, I am in the midst of writing another book.
All right.
So there is one to come.
All right.
I'm co-authoring with a friend of mine who comes from the military. So it's going to be kind of a, his experiences in the military and leadership today, and kind of helping visionaries, to step into their role moving forward, because it's a very important time in history for visionaries.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, so that's to come. But yeah, thank you again for having me.
Well, thank you. Well, look like we could probably have you back when you get that book done.
Yeah. Oh, I will absolutely be going through Amazon. I have had a fantastic experience with Amazon. So yeah, it's great to be here.
Well, it's great. Once again, it has been a pleasure. That is Traci Phillips. Make sure you follow her, guys, on her social media platform. It has truly been a blessing for me, and I can't wait to look for the replay. We get a lot of people on the replay because, live here, people probably working, but when we replay this, we get a lot of folks. But so I don't know how we're going to do the replay, but I'll let Tracy pick the winner, guys. Make sure you send the email to Tracy, and Tracy, just drop me a line how much I need to cash app you or whatever, Zelle, whatever. We'll shoot that over to you. So once again,
we'll work it all out.
We'll work it out. It has been a pleasure. I'm going to let you go. And guys, I'm going to go ahead and just let you know that it has been a pleasure again. Remember to follow us on Amazon Live. That helps us out. Click that follow button. And as we always say, love God and love one another.